My name is Antich. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Integrail. It's the platform for easy creation of AI agents. And now we are talking about so-called Reflex agents, so simple transactional agents that are actually able to do something in the external environment, or are able to sense the external environment, not just talk to you or pretend that they can generate some good text. So this is this Reflex agent. What we have added compared to the simple agent that we looked at last time is the ability to sense the external systems and provide some sort of output in the external system. So once again, let's look at a couple of examples because that's the easiest way to understand the idea. Switching to the studio again. So simple web search. So once again, this is a way to do RAG as well. Now we can use vector memory, but of course, nobody limits us to use just the vector memory. What we can do is search the web before interacting with the user. And this is exactly what this agent does. So we have a user prompt, then we have a separate LLM, very specific purpose that takes the user prompt and formulates a good Google search query. Because once again, user can write, I don't know, several pages of text. That's definitely not a good search query. We need to find something that will be useful for our agent to provide an answer with. So we have one LLM that does that. So here's a simple system prompt. It has to reformulate the user's input so that it becomes a good search query. And once again, system prompt formulation is an art in itself. We will have lots of courses to that effect in our university. These are very basic examples, just to give an idea. So we do that. Then we have a box or node that's called Google Search. It has different parameters. We limit the results to 2, again, just for demonstration purposes. Then, once we have found something, we need to somehow convert it. Feeding raw HTML to LLMs is not a good idea because there is lots of noise and you will also be burning tokens. So what we do, we have a specific node that's called readability that is able to read any kind of URL and convert it to Markdown or to plain text. So here we have connected them to every URL here. We read them, and then we connect them to our final agent that actually provides an answer. And once again, in the system prompt, we're just saying when you interact with the user, use this additional context. And we can test this. For instance, yeah, why not? So there's a question, how to install latest VMware software? So if you ask just LLM, it will probably hallucinate, but let's try our agent here. So Google Search has found a couple of links. Then we have read the websites. Let's see what the links are. Here's the first link, docvmware.com. Another link is knowledge.com. And then the result that it provides is based on this context. So once again, this is a type of RAG, but by using Google Search. And of course, nobody limits us to just one. We can add vector search to this agent as well. And this way, it will use both your internal knowledge database or even several if you want your agent to be very smart and take information from different sources. And it will also use Google Search to provide the results. And for instance, this is a very basic illustration of a very popular case that we have with a bunch of our early customers, which is customer support. Of course, here it's Google Search. You can do it with Google Search by searching the knowledge base of your website or of your company, or you can convert your knowledge base into vector memory. And in the same way, you will be able to provide customer support as well.
Anton, can you customize that block? And let's say it's my own internal function call that I want to do to a service that I have installed on my enterprise. that does something special for my customers or something? Doesn't have to be some canned solution, I guess, to the question in that block.
No. Yeah, so that's a great point, and that's something we have been working very hard lately. What we have, if I understand the question correctly, we have what we call a universal API node, which is basically you're able to call any API.
I got it.
And now you're able to edit it, but we have a very cool feature which I'm not going to be showing today. We are still testing it, but it will be available at the launch on 17th. We will generate it automatically. We have created a separate agent where you just give documentation to your API or a link to documentation to your API, and it generates this box automatically. So once again, no need to do any coding. You just feed it some documentation, and you're able to connect it in the same way. And this way you can connect any kind of custom system or existing systems.
So when you've talked about like context in the past, and you're given this example of how do I install VMware, and if it's a support kind of a context, is there a context around the entitlements of what that question, whoever's asking the question, are they entitled to install VMware? Is there a licensing impact? Is there an associated cost with it? Do you see that coming from that vertical bucket you had showed on the earlier graphic? Is that where that knowledge would come from as to whether, because I could give you the answer, but if it's not pertinent to your economic status, where would you be picking up that information from these integrations that you've talked about so far?
That's also from the vector memory. It's actually, I think we have a similar case. We're working with one of the universities, and the use case is that professors get really annoyed by answering stupid questions from the students, and they get lots of them. And basically, the way it works, they put the rules of engagement or the rules of the university into vector memory. And I will show you the email assistant here. It won't use that specific case, but it will be basically the same assistant. So it takes those rules, and for instance, if a student asks, can I extend my deadline because my beloved hamster has died? It will respond, no, you cannot, because the rules do not allow it, even though I feel for your loss, basically. So you can come up with all kinds of, fine tunings there using these memory pieces.
Okay, and that's a way of enriching your response. In this example, you're talking about a frequently asked question, some type of another form of a knowledge base, effectively.
Right.
And so, is there any personal? Because you did use that word CRM. That's sort of what I'm seizing upon. And so, CRM is an incredibly hermetic and hierarchical view of attributes associated with a user. And so, like Salesforce, for example, would have Einstein GPT things that it does. And it's supposed to, if I know it's not a Salesforce pitch, but if Salesforce, if you're using that, it should understand what you should be able to see or have access to. So if you are not able to generate the report, it won't generate a report. It's not supposed to generate a report you're not supposed to have access to. There's rules. And so where would rules appear for those kinds of, and I don't want to go into like access control and things of that nature, but how do you ensure that this is not, if you do those connections, is not exfiltrating data that should not be accessible by you?
Yeah, basically, I think that's, you just have to use the policy that your company uses when integrations, because if you're doing integrations manually, you're facing the same problem. If your developers use admin access and give it to the users will be able to see everything. So we have a tab here that's called external integrations. It's a consistently growing number of integrations, but we will also have this universal API, as I mentioned. But the point is, for instance, Microsoft, you can use two types of authorization. I can use it as a user, then I will see the data that I am able to see automatically. So this may be one way to fulfill what you're asking about Salesforce, if they provide tokens that are specific to specific users. Or I can, as a system administrator of our company's Microsoft account, I can put like a super token, and then I will see everything. But that's up to me to limit my users.
Yeah, this is that notion of like you, the user, Anton, versus the system account on your behalf. And when was the most recent update and refresh of how that system account is enabled or entitled to searches of whatever variety? And so you're looking at this as however you've integrated, that's your first kind of security choice.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, going back to that CRM question, would CRM be one of those potential future available integrations? Those okay.
Definitely. That's high on the list because we're gonna use it internally.
Yeah, because there's the notion of your Microsoft persona as you're known, and then there's maybe the Salesforce persona of your known, and those could be, two separate, distinctly separated for a very good reason. Okay,
Exactly.
very good.
So
And that's where I create a
quick follow-on question to that is there on a roadmap tying identity in general into this? So as I think about agents and building more complicated agents, so without creating the agent for every identity, I can have identity as part of either I can prompt for identity, or the agent itself can have identity within a larger system.
That's actually a great idea. We kind of have that, but you are giving us good ideas now to implement the function. Thank you. So yeah, let's actually move to this email responder case, and I think it will show some of that stuff. So here is an agent that with which I don't even interact because we have a node to read Gmail letters, and we have the same for Microsoft, and again expanding APIs, etc., etc. So we have a demo account here. Okay, is this the one? Yeah. So I have sent already an email here that says, "Hi, I'm interested to test the Integrail AI platform. We need to build a customer support bot. Can you help?" So kind of an email that came here. And again, in the real application, we can use different triggers. Now it's just for demo purposes. So we will just run this agent. So the way it works is to your identity question. Here we have service Google and a specific identity that allows this agent to read emails for Integrail demo. But then if we have an identity that allows to read like all company emails, we can use it here as well. So we have this connected. Then we have a node that reads last emails. I have limited it just to the one to get the last email. Then I also have vector search, again, as we discussed, because I want the LLM to provide an answer not just out of the blue because it will hallucinate. It has no idea what Integrail AI is, but we're using vector search to give it context about Integrail. And then it does not just create email, but we have another node that creates an actual draft email directly in my Gmail inbox. So this is an example of a fully no-code agent where you don't create any code, but it actually works with you through Gmail. So let's just run it. So we got the email, we got vector search. Now we're responding. Then we will create draft email. So first, let's look here. So here is a nice email. Hi, John. Thank you for reaching out. Blah, blah, blah. It uses all the information about Integrail it does. Then let's go back to Google, refresh. As you can see, it has created the draft. It wasn't there previously. Let's go and let's read this text. So it's right in your inbox. It says, "Thank you for reaching out and expressing why Integrail." It explains why Integrail. It explains how you can get started. It even mentions the promo that we have on the website. And this all it took from the context. So once again, it's a very simple example. But the point here is that you don't need to use those agents by talking to them. You can very easily, using our APIs, integrate them into your systems, your existing systems. And it will use your proprietary knowledge bases. It will know all your corporate information or whatever information you want to feed it by building those vector memories. And this way you get much more useful assistance than just generic LLM systems.
So Anton, on the assistance aspect of it, are you designing this to be interactive use by a user, or is this going to be able to execute tasks on my behalf? So if I created an agent, I don't necessarily want it to respond to email or categorize my email. I think that that's a fairly simplistic view of what we want in the enterprise. I would really like it to be able to say, hey, based on some combination of internal knowledge and an external input from an email or user interaction, my customer interaction, I'd like it to be able to up the probability I'm going to close this sale in my Salesforce account. So mark that from a 10% probability to a 70% probability, right? Those types of things. Are we going to be able to interact with other tools in that way?
That's exactly the point. That's what I'm demonstrating. So this is the interaction with Gmail, but you're able to, in the same way, integrate into CRM systems, into other email systems, into site management systems, into what have you. So this is our sort of main vision that we're executing right now. Is we want to give agents hands because that's what current AI is missing, so that they can do stuff for me. That's what I want them to. I want them to work for me, not just Okay, so this was email integration. Again, as mentioned, a very cool thing that's coming up next week is the universal API, where we will be able to integrate with any kind of external system if it has an API and integration. But for now, let's move further.
Anton, since you just touched on the APIs, I'm really interested in what the deployment architecture looks like for this. Looks like you're demonstrating this off a local machine, presumably with some containers running on it. Is this going to be a cloud service that we're going to subscribe to, or is this software that we're going to deploy on premises? That particularly has some relevance of where is the vector database that contains my proprietary information. Is that going to stay on my premises, or is it going to be a local service?
Yeah, so the current version is all in the cloud, but there is an option for on-premise deployment. It's just since it requires more maintenance, it's mostly for enterprise companies which usually have higher requirements. But yes, it's possible.
And I'm comfortable with the editing component entirely being a web service that you never ship down to me and always keep up to date. But I'm much more concerned about where's my vector database, where's this connectivity into all of my corporate data. That
is actually there is also a hybrid mode, because if you are concerned only about your vector memory, we are able to you can have completely your own like Mongo instance, just provide with access, and then we will use that one.
Right.
Sorry, if I could do a follow-up really quick. Let's hear from Hi.
Hi.
So if we're using your cloud services to store all this data, like what is the data sovereignty? Like where right now, where are your cloud stuff? What country are they based in? And can you provide it for multiple jurisdictions or countries?
Yeah, the production servers are currently in the US. It's Amazon and the US. We use staging in Europe, but of course, as we grow, we will just use different data centers across the globe.
Thank you.
If you're in AWS, is this making use of Q or Bedrock or any of the so-called native offers from AWS currently, or are you primarily relying on your own? You're doing your own primitives, building a piece at a time.
Yeah, we are currently using bare machines, and we run some of the LLMs ourselves, but we use bare machines. We don't use stuff. On the security question, since we came up to this, actually, this university use case is quite interesting because the way they use it, or rather, we used it to sort of circumvent the security requirements, is that we have two very small Llama 7B LLMs, which are probably the smallest you can run, which run on their premises, and they do anonymizing of the emails. So we feed it the text of the email, we take out all the personal information, like we substitute the student's name to person 1, professor's name to person 2. Then we process it as usual via APIs. Nobody cares because there's no personal data. And then we give it back to Llama, which does de-anonymizing on university premises. And this way, they're happy, everybody is happy, and this is kind of a hybrid deployment.
So the university in that example is taking on the burden of the masking of data before it's presented back to you.
Well, I mean, we do that. It's just we put part of the solution on there. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so this is it, for example. So Reflex agents, once again, they have no context, they have no memory, they are simple condition action or transactional agents. But even for them, pretty much any transactional process in sales, marketing, or HR can be automated. You read the state of some system, you process it via different LLMs, you make a change via API in the system, like update the state of the opportunity, which we just discussed. So this is exactly where these Reflex agents are quite good at.